The George the Tech Performer Friendly podcast is brought to you by Full Compass and FullCompass.com. We know VO. And
GTT. Not sure if your audio sounds professional? A sound check by George the Tech removes all doubts and explains the next steps. Audiobooks, podcasts, or voiceovers. For content creators, we do it all. New customers get 20% off with coupon code XPTO.
George the Tech.
For me, the conversational read is a read of interpretation rather than a read of presentation.
George the Tech.
Hey everyone, we are back for another of our trusted partner profiles because we've got so many incredible coaches, directors, and trusted brains in our voiceover industry to talk to. So this one's been waiting for a while, and we're really remiss in making this gentleman wait for so long to sit down for a chat, and that's all my fault. But thanks to my amazing assistant, Billy Joe, who works with Hugh, she got it lined up for us. So without a lot of wasted time and boring bio reading, let's just get into a conversation because that's what we like to do. And here hanging out with me today is Hugh Klitzke. How you doing, Hugh?
I'm good, George. How you been?
I've been well. It's been a very busy month. You know, we had to squeeze in a conference in the middle of everything else that we're already doing. It was exhausting. We're back and we're hitting the ground running. How's your spring so far?
I'll be honest, it's been a little slow.
Yeah.
I'm also in this weird transition where I am bringing in a new development team.
Ooh.
So everybody that knows when I've said those magic words, they've had that exact reaction. And if you don't know, people are like, oh,
okay.
Okay. But the people that really know are like, ooh.
So when you said development, you're referring to web development, I would presume?
Web development, but it's the portal that operates the Open Studio.
Yeah.
And it's the portal that is the means by which I communicate to the folks that want to study with me or take workshops under my own banner,
right.
Things like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you start with another team and another platform that didn't work out the way you had expected it to? Or
Same platform, different team.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. I'm not gonna name names or really even bash anybody because that team did get me up to speed. They did build out my site. They did take the Open Studio to where it is now, and I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely.
And they were really very forward in encouraging me, and they went with the way that I thought that the Open Studio could go, when at first they were more interested in it as saying, oh, this is the kind of thing you've got to charge for. You've got to make this a portion of your income. And I was like, no, I don't. I suffer from anonymity. I don't suffer from, I mean, sure, I need to make more money, obviously, but at the same time, my profile isn't where it should be. And I think an ongoing free event series that is unique in nature could, elevate my profile. And they were like, what do you want to do? I said, well, I've had this idea kicking around for a long time of coaching somebody live and letting other people watch.
Yeah.
And they were like, huh? And I'm like, no, really, that's really all I want to do.
Yeah.
And they were like, but I've never even heard of that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's like the point.
Yeah. I'm doing something new. That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. And but the team also was very encouraging when it had a really early success, when Natasha Matrevka was in there and it ran like gangbusters. Natasha pushed it, and then suddenly we had 75 people on that first call. Then the next couple of calls were just around the same kind of sales, around 60 people in attendance live, 50 people in attendance live. They really prompted me to say, okay, turn it into a series. You've got a thing here. So people kind of see it as being like a podcast almost.
That's what I was going to say.
But it's a live event.
Yeah. It's a live event podcast. It's recorded.
It is recorded. I do record it. And my intention is to take the video and divide it up and to use that for marketing. My other intention was to take all the content and put the content as a library behind a paywall.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. Let's take a step back because I don't want to assume everybody knows your background and what you're working on and what you've built. Give me a little bit of basis of your career up until now. We both have enough gray hair that story could be very long. But give me a little bit of a basis and how you came to become the conversational VO coach that you are today.
Okay, so the short version of the Hugh gets into the VO universe story is it was a happy accident when I was scoring somebody's film and they couldn't afford to pay me. I said I was looking for a better day job. And the guy he used to run a recording studio at an agency and said, I just left. I know they're still looking for somebody. I want to put you in front of them because I think you'd be good at it. Yeah. And I said, sure, absolutely, because I'd rather do anything than sell cell phones at Radio Shack.
Yeah.
And
so you have a deep background in music that I didn't even know was buried in there. That's why I wanted to get into that a little bit. But
before that, that was the master's degree in studio composition from Purchase. I don't know if Purchase is on your radar. SUNY Purchase?
Oh, yeah. Well, SUNY is. Purchase specifically wasn't, but.
Yeah, exactly. And then, my jazz background, my background, being able to talk to musicians of all kinds, being able to assist in a lot of different kinds of categories.
Did you do directing as well? Or
music
directing and directing? Yeah.
So I was trained as a conductor, and I was never afraid to get in front of a group of musicians to make it go the way I wrote it.
Yeah.
So there was some music direction involved in that. Yes, absolutely.
And were you strictly in jazz, or were you doing jazz and classical, or a lot of other styles?
The freelancing stuff kind of went all over the place. My degree was in jazz, but that let me be able to talk to a lot of classical guys because I was able to talk a lot of different musical languages. So when I worked on a piece for the American Ballet Theater, that was contracted by the Cole Porter Trust. That was my theater background getting involved in that. But I had a music background in that world. And then I was able to assist with the production of this ballet, for example. I was able to assist the orchestrator. Then they wanted somebody who was able to run finale. You know what finale was, I'm sure?
You said was because I know it does not exist anymore.
It just less than a year it stopped. Yeah, which is a very long run for a piece of software.
It is.
For sure. I could speak finale fluently, and so I did all kinds of music engraving for a lot of different people. Pop, classical, avant-garde, my own music, lots of theater stuff, because my background, I was really interested in music and theater more than anything.
Yeah.
So I pursued that and then began to get different kinds of assistant work and things around that too.
One of my oldest and best friends from school has been writing music for on and off Broadway and avant-garde theater in New York now for like 20 years.
Who's that?
His name's Aaron Meischt.
Okay. I don't know who that is. That's fun.
And so it's fun hearing these stories because that is my way back background was, working with all these musicians, but on the technical side, engineering them, whatever they could throw at me, my job was to capture it,
Nice.
It was all sorts of improvisational music. There was no score. I was just recording the best I could capture what was coming out of their instruments. It was very free-form style of composition and performance. But I have other friends who do a lot of very deep levels of big band arranging and writing.
Oh, wow.
Transcribing, etc. So it's so neat hearing all this. It just it brings back great memories of my before voiceover times as well.
That's great.
Very cool.
Great.
I didn't know we had that common bond. I like that.
I had no idea.
To hear that.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So you were in music quite a while. What was your primary instrument?
I'm a recovering trombonist.
Oh, no kidding. And I'm a recovering trumpetist.
Okay. Okay.
I still have my horn, and I won't get rid of it. Yeah, but I keep thinking one day we'll pick it up again when that feels right.
I lost both my horns in a fire, but a good friend of mine passed away, and I got one of his.
Oh, how nice! I mean,
So
sort of a tragic on top of tragic, nice, tragic sandwich of a story there.
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. And I keep threatening to pick it up again too. There's a great brass band tradition out of Brooklyn and also a bit in Queens too. So some of those community bands are really quite good. They look like they're having a good time.
I imagine there's some very good community bands in those areas for sure.
I've thought about getting, maybe trying to hook up with one, but I also recognize if I did it, I want it to be a real commitment. So
yeah, exactly.
Just weighing out the idea of, can I get myself back into shape enough to be able to do that? And then from there to commit to it.
Yes. I mean, anybody who doesn't play brass or maybe wind instruments doesn't maybe not know. Like, it takes quite a while to build up the strength, the muscles in the face, the embouchure, all those things, get back your endurance, being able to rehearse or perform for 2, 3, 4 hours straight. That takes time. It's hard. And I know I can pick up a horn and get a sound out of it. It might be somewhat pleasant for a few moments, but the rest is work, and it's a lot of work. But hopefully that time comes again for you as well as it does for me. So all of those things, your musical ear, your ability to collaborate or direct, work with people, all of these things led down the path to one day a happy accident. Now we can regain that. We can return to that timeline. What happened in this happy accident that got you introduced to voiceover that way?
I got hired to work at a New York City talent agency and run their booth. And I was one of, I think, 2 people in the whole city that had that job.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I don't think any other agencies had a full-time booth. I think some of them had like a room with a mic in it that they might send the assistants into.
Right.
Maybe.
Would you say that's because voiceover as a discipline wasn't so focused on? You were still considered to be a legit actor first or an on-camera first, and then maybe you would do some voiceover as a side gig? Or why do you think that was? There was so little of it back then.
It wasn't so much the little nature of it. I think it was because the casting office still existed in New York, while the casting office, when I got involved, had basically ceased to exist in LA. Because when people could begin to record at home, or it was feasible to build out a tiny studio in an agency, the casting director kind of stopped. But in New York, also, a lot of it had to do with the fact that New York kept them because advertising was still here, and we have comprehensive mass transit.
Right.
California doesn't have nearly as much advertising, nor everybody has to get in their car to go anywhere.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So those were 2 major factors. Then you bring in the fact that you could create a decent, audition setup at home.
Right.
And that got adopted first on the West Coast.
That's right.
Suddenly you didn't have to get onto the 405 for 45 minutes to do a 3-minute audition.
But it took longer for New York City to adopt that, though. Isn't that right?
Because
of the practical nature of people to get to the studio.
The casting directors still had, were still in force. They were still working, and they still were the means of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Now with the pandemic drove the stake into the heart. It was smaller and smaller and smaller over the 15 years that I worked at Buckwalt. Yeah. But by the time the pandemic came, it was finished. I don't think that there are any casting directors who do it live anymore. I know there are a couple people that want to, but I think that there are very few that actually do that. So the nature of the work had changed completely. I came in right around the time where you could aspire to be a voiceover talent. The generation before me, those folks had fallen into it, much as the way that you just described it. They had a legit career, and then they also did voiceover, or they found out about it and they were like, I could get paid scale to do that.
Yeah.
and get residuals on that.
No makeup at
Holy
5 in the morning.
Holy crap. I could do that. That's incredible.
Right.
And a friend of mine showed me her notes from a class that she took in 2003. And it was like one of the only voiceover classes in the city at the time. She still had her workbook, and she said, yeah, man, you're really getting serious about this coaching and teaching thing. Here are my notes from 2003. And we sat down and she walked me through them. And I was like, it's fascinating.
Yeah. The whole idea of teaching voice acting is a new concept in the time arc of acting. It's a very, very recent thing, really, right? Yeah. Last 20, 25 years.
It's a fairly recent thing. Yeah. We're talking like only like 2 generations of actors. But the conservatories don't really do very much with it.
Yeah.
They certainly don't go into it in the depth that can be done with it.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's treated as an ancillary thing, an incidental thing, almost like a casual thing, rather than something that you can really aspire to.
Yeah.
Do you
think that needs to change, or should that change? Or
yeah, I think it should.
Yeah.
I really do. I really think it could be taken just as seriously as every single other kind of acting. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also because I worked with actors first. They were actors who were doing voiceover. The very first classes and the very first things that I wrote for John Florian were from my site, were originally called Voiceover for the Actor.
Mm.
That was my first marketing. And that was who I taught first.
Yeah.
Because I said to myself, I can't teach somebody who doesn't know what they're doing at all, anything about vocal production or anything like that. I can't teach them. But if an actor came to me and said, I want to learn how to do voiceover, I could teach them.
Because you have an idea what their basis of training is. Right. They've gone through this and this and this and all these processes to get to that point. So now where you're working with. You know what the foundation is. Then you can focus on a training regimen instead of like, so where are you at now? And then they read a script and it's like, oh, you've never had acting training. Okay. This is a whole different animal.
Yeah. This goes back to 2013, 2014. Some of the voice actors said to me, dude, you need to teach and coach. And I was like, no. And they're like, why? And I said, because I don't think I have anything to offer. I didn't come up in this. And they're like, no. The way you talk about this, it's so good. And I was like, no way, But even my old boss at the time, she was like, she said, look, within limits, because you can't use the agency name. There are legal rules that say you can't do that. You have to make it clear that it's not a pipeline to us.
Right. Yep.
But if you were to pursue that, and I was like, okay, I can draw that line. I can make that line very clear. So I would start every workshop where I would say, if you're here thinking that this workshop could be a way for you to get into my agency that I work for, I said, and I would literally say this, you need to take your money and go. Because that can't be why we're here.
Right.
But I said, but on the other side, it's my responsibility to teach you because it can't be about that.
Yes.
So now we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And immediately the air would clear and then everybody cooled out where they were, instead of it going, oh, this could be my chance. It's like, no.
They realize this is not a quick, easy way to slip in the door. This is just another journey in a training and into a possible career. It's not an easy way in.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. And then in 2019, I went out on my own and I created, after a little while after going out on my own, I went out in time, just in time for the pandemic.
I was going to say 2019 is when you left the agency completely.
Uh-huh.
Interesting timing.
Yeah. Great timing,
Doing it on your own terms, not, oh crap, instead of the alternative.
Well, the the pandemic kicked my ass because, I lived in New York City. So that was, everybody was afraid to go outside and take a deep breath.
Oh my goodness. I cannot. I mean, again, I have friends and I knew people in New York. What a different experience for you guys than it was for us here in LA to be in the pandemic. I mean, much more difficult.
Yeah,
for sure.
It got absurd fast. I didn't ride the subway for a year and a half. I didn't see my father in real life for a year and a half. And my father this year turns 95.
Wow.
Yeah, he turns 95 this year.
That's amazing. Wow.
So I see him, every single chance that I get.
Sure.
We discuss my business. He wants to know how much money I make. He wants to know what's going on. He wants to know all the details.
He wants the dirt.
He wanted to know,
the detail.
He was like, we discussed my development company issues. We discussed the fact that basically for the first time, me being in charge of a business meant I was going to change a relationship professionally, sever a relationship. And I'd never had to do that before. So I talked to him about that. But my father also said to me, when I was making the transition, he said, you might get a different kind of satisfaction working with people for a much longer period of time rather than the 5 minutes, 3 minutes at a time you're working with them at the agency.
What about your dad? Do you think gave him a unique, useful perspective? Because, a lot of times a parent goes, I support you. I love you. I don't know what the hell you're doing. And I want to care, but I can't because I don't. Your dad clearly your dad seemed to be tuned in and is still tuned into what you're doing. What was his background?
First of all, the fact that he's so old and still is tuned in is a miracle.
Yes, that is a blessing.
Because I've seen, because we saw a lot of my family members, be completely mentally gone by 89, 90.
Yeah, right.
And that sucked.
Yeah.
That was an awful thing. So there's that, which is an amazing thing every single day.
Sure.
Number two, he's always been very, very curious, but still he has a certain distance that he keeps from basically everybody. I wouldn't say quite that he's shy because he's very congenial, but being a man of that generation, he worked a lot. He held 2 full-time jobs for like 15, 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Teaching school during the day and a security guard at night.
Oh, wow.
And working every weekend, to do all that for us in order to make things go and all of that. But he was always very, very curious and very, very supportive and really was genuinely wanted to know what was going on, even though he didn't quite understand it. And as I'd gotten older, we grew closer and we're very close.
That's awesome.
But that really only happened when I was about 27, 28. Around there.
Yeah.
But he had also retired at that point too. So maybe it was just because he had more time.
Yeah.
Also.
Sure.
But he extended himself to me and I said yes. And then we've traveled together and done all kinds of stuff together that way. So
has your dad been retired longer than you've been involved in the voiceover industry?
Yeah, I think so.
If you do the math, right?
Yes.
That's pretty wild.
You do the math and that's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Wow.
It's true. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But that's cool. That's really nice. You get all this extra time with your dad to talk about what's going on in business. My dad turns 80 today, so it's
wonderful.
It's nice to hear these things, like how these connections go on where my dad doesn't love hanging out on the phone, but I can get him on FaceTime or I got my dad a Portal, which is a Facebook product that they canceled, but it's basically a video screen for chatting with your relatives. It's a dedicated device. And that's why it works. Because it's just sitting in the living room with a big screen and a camera and speakers. It's the future of video phone calls that you saw in the Science Museum, when you were 15. Someday we're going to do video. It's that. It's just the modern version. And it's great because they can sit in their living room, be reclined using his recliner over here. My mom's on the sofa over here. My brother's sitting over here in a chair, and we're all chatting with each other comfortably. That's the way I can have a long conversation with my dad from afar, and it works. But I digress.
No, that's fine. That's good. That's beautiful.
So voiceover became a full-time pursuit. And then in 2019, it became everything. Your own business. You went all totally on your own. And at that time, the brand had you created the Conversational VO at that point?
No,
Okay.
not immediately. No, that came a couple of years later.
Yeah.
That was a product of me talking to voice actors when they came to study with me. And I would say to them, what are you looking for in a coach?
Yeah.
And then they would say, okay, I make a great living doing non-broadcast things. I make a great living doing, I don't know, let's say industrials and e-learning and medical narration and voice on hold or all kinds of things. They would say, but I've never really landed the conversational read. Can you help me with that?
Yeah.
And I was like,
my old friend Dan called a lot of those gigs like the lunch pail voiceover work.
Yeah.
You know, it's not glamorous. It's not Hollywood, but it's work that can be consistent, repeat clients that goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. And I bent myself to that. And it was actually Debbie Irwin who, when we were collaborating together, doing some co-teaching and stuff, we were talking online and she was looking at available URLs and she said, hey, conversationalvo.com is available. You want it? And I said,
oh,
sure. I said, sure, give it to me, whatever, just do it. So she bought it and transferred it to me and I had it. And then it just sat around for a while and then I didn't do anything with it. And then it was Matt, the Aussie fellow, Matt
Calrick.
Matt Calrick was setting me up with Zoho.
Oh yeah.
And because he ran Zoho and that seemed like a great idea at the time. And that's what I still use to run my business.
If you have somebody to help you set it up because they've set it up for their business, it's a good choice. Otherwise, it's a bit of a beast.
It is a beast. And I that was why I needed one development team. And that's the focus that the new development team has also. So I'm completely in the Zoho universe except for my Google Calendar. That's it. Right. And I have a Gmail account.
Right. It's
also,
an ecosystem. If anybody doesn't know, Zoho is a very, very cost-effective ecosystem of many different separate apps, right? That interact or don't. Some I don't think they all tie in directly with each other, but they all give you different modules, right? Like a CRM module and all sorts
That's
of
right.
things.
If somebody signs up for the Open Studio, I've never encountered before, they fill out a form and that form goes directly into my CRM.
Yep.
You could do the same thing with Eventbrite, but Eventbrite has all the information. I have all their information now.
Yeah.
If I give somebody, and I do this a lot, I give people forms to fill out where I say, tell me what you think about this thought. And then they fill out a survey form, or maybe I give them a ranked choice voting question or something like that. Here are 5 topics that people tell me they're interested in for workshops. Which one do you like best? Things like that. Then that connects to an entry in the CRM rather than just living in Google.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Zoho lets you do things like that. It also runs my site. It also runs my mail. It also has all the stuff that the Google Suite has.
Sure. Yeah.
So all of those things work together.
Yeah.
So Conversational VO was the result of finding that. And then Matt Calrick said, you on this URL? I said, yeah. And he says, that's really good. That's really good marketing. You should think about that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And he's like, I said, what, Hugh P. Klitzke is not distinctive enough? Because I own Hugh Klitzke and Hugh P. Klitzke, and I had no trouble owning those URLs because there is no other Hugh P. Klitzke out there. I mean, come on, all you got to do is spell it right,
Right. Well, that's why my brand isn't Whittam, by the way, because all you have to do is spell it right, and that doesn't happen that often, I've noticed.
And Klitzke is kind of hard to spell too, for sure, absolutely. But conversational VO then became the niche where it's like, okay, you need to niche into a thing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly people would come to me for that. And then they began to really understand that, to say, what does he coach? He coaches conversational. Oh. And then people immediately were able to hone in on it, that it wasn't just commercial. And I never coached audiobook or anything like that. I just figured I would be coaching commercial. But
we're having a conversation. Why do I need to be coached into being conversational? That's called a softball. That's called a softball.
Okay.
Here you
go. All right. So why do you need to be coached into that? Because the words that you are tasked to say are so purpose written, they are entirely unnatural.
Right.
And because they are functional, it is not like just having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
They are purpose written and designed more often than not to be heard once and understood immediately with no takebacks. Hence, that is why so many reads just sound so formulaic, so predictable, so unnatural.
Yep.
But the need to communicate effectively in 2026 is completely different than the way that ideas needed to be communicated even 5 years ago, even 15 years ago, and certainly from when I started in 2006.
Well, give me one thing that stands out in your mind when you think of what's changed in 5 years. It's
5 years?
It's pandemic. It's...
Oh, that's easy. The targeting of advertising in particular is now smaller than niche. It is down to the micro level.
Wow.
This goes back to Seth Godin's precept of people like us do things like this. And the desire to convey that authentically and genuinely requires a set of skill that wasn't necessary 5-10 years ago. What's the rejoinder to that? The rejoinder to that is, well, if they want it read conversational, they should write it like it's a conversation.
Right.
No. You have to convey a very specific amount of information in a very short period of time and have it be understood completely. That is why commercial writing hasn't changed for the last 100 years.
So,
because essentially it was perfected about a century ago.
That's fascinating to think about. That ad writing was essentially figured out 100 years ago, and yet the way we deliver that ad copy has changed many, many times since then.
Correct. I mean, do you agree with everything I've said, or you want to fight me?
No, I just don't realize, because I don't focus on performance, right? I have a very, very different thing I focus on.
I don't focus on tech.
Yeah, I'm not listening to a performance unless it's... I don't notice the performance unless it's really terrible or really good.
And I only listen to the performance, and I subcontract all of my post.
Right. Yeah.
I can edit. I can tell different recordings. I know enough to make sure that my bit rate is set correctly.
Right.
And then I also know when to stop and say, okay, I don't know how to do the rest of this. And I get on the phone and I go, Carl, I got some work for you. And he goes, oh, good.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. Well, I guess my point is there are these things that while the general public may know what an ad they think should sound like, the buyers, the casting people have a very, very specific thing they're looking for. And you're helping people give them what they're looking for, it sounds like to me.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And it's not that the announcer read and the more presentational reads don't exist out there in the culture. They certainly do.
They're just one of many, many different little niches of styles.
And to me, the conversational read is about understanding those niches when you're asked for that.
Yeah.
For me, the conversational read is a read of interpretation rather than a read of presentation.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. When people see, I've heard from some of the conversations I've had as of late that it's not uncommon for a voice actor to receive a script and see the specs and say, gee, that looks like the specs from another script, which looks like a specs from another script. So the specs are becoming slowly more generic in a way. They're getting reused over and over again. Are you seeing that happening?
Actually, I'm not. I haven't seen that.
Okay.
I think that maybe pieces of it might be.
Yeah.
But in general, I'm finding that the writing of direction, the writing of the thing that I call tone, direction, is actually getting better.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Because they're asking for more specific things. And the more specific that they can make the request, the more effective a voice actor can be at giving them what they want or trying to interpret it.
Are they getting better at, are those folks getting better at asking for what they want?
I think, honestly, George, everybody is out there fighting for their lives. And they're all sitting there saying, okay, I have to prove myself to be indispensable.
Right.
So I need to give a little bit more. I need to step up my game and to really say very clearly, these are the things that I need. I need you to sound like this, and I need to tell you that.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
And again, is that every case, everywhere? No.
Yeah. I think it depends a lot whether you're auditioning for roles on, online casting, versus high quality, oftentimes union, very skilled writing.
Correct.
Right?
Skilled writing, lots of execution.
Yeah.
Lots of exposure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So those higher levels, there's a higher level of expectation, and at every stage of the production, at every level of that production, there's a higher level of expectation.
Agreed.
That makes a lot of sense. So do you feel like, I know you don't think tech, but I've been hearing from other casting directors and such that they don't want to hear commercials that sound processed. They want it to be natural. Whereas if you're auditioning for the pay-to-play sites, you're often, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're often in those cases auditioning for the client directly, right? You're auditioning for the guy that owns the store,
Interesting.
In another work where it's union jobs or national commercials, et cetera, with casting directors, et cetera, you have a different audience when you do that audition. Do you think of it that way at all?
I don't think about it that way because my product is not the audio.
Right.
However, the way you describe it makes perfect sense.
How do you think about your product? Do you think about it a lot? Do you obsess over it? I deal with clients all the time who hire me, and I can see that they obsess over the quality of their audio to an unhealthy degree.
I obsess over people's processes in order to achieve a result.
Right.
So I think a lot about how do I convey an idea to somebody to make it useful for them. And I treat almost all of my client relationships as problems to be solved, meaning that they're unique, meaning that they're very situation specific, and that it requires me to ideally get in there and understand what they do, and then to try to assist them in changing what they do in order to make it, to get what they are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, yes, to make it better, and then ultimately, yes, to use that to get them, more money, more work.
Right.
That's just where it's at.
We both have the same exact modus operandi. We're just focusing on different divisions of the process.
I'm focusing on I think the most important part of an audition are the moments that you take before you actually press record.
And I'm thinking from the moment they press record to the rest of the process. It's like we're right. You're like, okay, this is everything I care about, and then okay, this is where I take over.
Mm-hmm.
How interesting, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and sure, obviously that's a gross simplification, of course.
Sure, yeah.
But for sure, I think that the decisions that you make are the things that are going to affect your performance. Hence, concentrating on those decisions and to make those decisions efficiently and effectively are the main focus of my coaching.
Right. I want to ask you, do you have a concern over an actor's audition process that might involve too much editing? And by which I mean, they record maybe 3-4 takes that they're pretty happy with, but they're really happy with the beginning of take A, and they're really happy with how they ended take C, and they love the middle of take D, and they put them together, comp, as we say. Is that a problematic approach for most actors?
Okay, so coming from the casting, we'll just say the casting director world, right?
Yeah.
I was in there constantly editing takes rather than editing multiple takes rather than editing one take, Frankensteining one take into something. So of the thousands and thousands and thousands of auditions that I directed,
right,
I did that so rarely. So rarely did I actually take a piece of this and a piece of that and cobble it together into a thing.
Got it.
So rarely.
And that's because the folks you were working with could do a performance of that script.
Correct. And I can't say that it spoiled me, but it informed me.
Yeah.
I don't really get down on anybody that does the work the way that they do it or the level that they do it on, which is ironic because the people that I do work with mostly are folks that have been in it for a while. And ideally, I think that my ideal student is somebody who's been in the game for like 3 to 5 years and then comes to me because they usually have a very specific idea of the thing that they're looking for that they're not getting.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you, like, who do you look for in a student? Like that's,
and then in the perfect world, you get me in there, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh, you need to know how to do that thing. Okay, so do this. And they're like, and what? And I'm like, no, do that. And then they're like, no shit. And I'm like, okay, cool. That happens a lot. That happens a lot. And what is that a product of? It's a product of me having heard great talent doing the work constantly, and then learning how to speak to them and then learning how to offer the changes that got them where they needed to go and to have it then be effective. Do I think that people should be Frankensteining their takes together? Probably not. Do I think that it makes sense that you do it? Yeah, a bit. I do think it's a very fine line between recognizing, hey, it's an audition, they're going to take you somewhere. But to your point, if there's an agent or a casting director audition, you know there's going to be another layer where you're going to be in a session and get taken where they want you to go. As opposed to a pay-to-play where you're in there and they're saying, I just want to hear exactly what I'm going to get. And then maybe they'll just be using the recording that you've given them.
Yeah, I want to hear a finished product, because if you send just a dry performance, it's not going to sound like a finished product. And I don't know if that's what I want to hear. And you might turn in the best performance, but your levels are lower. You have more breaths or too many breaths or whatever it is, and they're like, it doesn't sound finished to me. And then you miss the gig for a silly reason that you didn't gussy it up first. But casting directors is not what that's not what they're looking for.
No, it goes back to I found this great Brad Pitt clip recently where he was talking about auditioning in like a roundtable situation. And he said, it's like politics. You campaign to get the job and then you govern differently. You're auditioning to get the job and then you do the job differently.
Right.
And he talked about a lot of actors not really, he felt like understood that. And then the second thing was that he talked about the need to do something different, but not different for its own sake. And he said, think about the casting directors in the room. think about you in the waiting room. You're sitting there with 10, 20 other people that look vaguely like you, where any of them could do the job. And then the casting director hears 10, 20, the same take over and over again. So you have to go in there and you still have to be genuine and honest. You still have to sit there and be responsive to the material, but you still have to figure out a way to differentiate yourself while still being truthful and still satisfying what's going on. So you can't do something for its own sake and be outrageous, but at the same time, you have to be different. And I'm sitting there going, "Is Brad Pitt saying great stuff?" And when some coaches say things like, "And when that last take, just go crazy, just do something completely different," it's like, no, that's not what they're asking you for.
Yeah, you have to respect everything that led up to that script landing in your inbox, right?
Yeah, you really, really do. And that you got to get told. You've been asked to paint the room blue. Now you get to pick the color blue, but don't give them a red room.
Right.
And God's sake, don't give them a green room.
Right.
Got to give them a blue room.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That makes a lot of sense to me, who's not had acting training, but it lands. I get it. I'll tell you, if I ever, speaking of playing trumpet, if I ever really want to pursue voiceover, that's the kind of coaching I'd want to hear. That totally lands. I get it. Man, I'll tell you, I know you and I could talk a long time, and we've had a nice chat. I'd like to talk to you for a half hour more, but I know both of us have things in our queue, and I got more work to do today. So I might have to wrap this up, but I do want to give you a chance to tell everybody a little bit more about how they would work with you, we've already talked about conversationalvo.com, how you get started, you fill out a form.
Well, you go
what happens next?
You can go to, what I suggest is that everybody should come to the Open Studio. So on my site, there's a menu where you can pull down. It says the Open Studio series, and you can click on that. There's a little icon at the top with a headset.
I see it,
and that says Open Studio. You click on that, and it's at the
bottom. So no matter whether you're at the top or the bottom, you'll see Open Studio. Okay,
and there's often a banner saying, "Here's the next Open Studio event."
Got it.
So what is the Open Studio? The Open Studio is a completely free event every 2 weeks where I coach a voice talent live, and a whole audience of people gets to watch that voice talent get coached. And then you learn by seeing that process happen. And the fascinating thing is that it almost becomes like a Rorschach test, where everybody that watches it gets something out of it for themselves.
Right. Yeah.
So there is I've seen producers come in. I have seen beginner voice actors come in. I have seen veterans come in. I have seen a couple of people have come in who said part of their careers were copywriters, and they talked about some things relative to that. I've seen other coaches come in, and the premise is that you get to observe by seeing the work you get to learn by observing the work being done.
It's a ride along.
What you get,
it's a ride along.
Yeah, it's a ride along. That's right. Yeah. It is a ride along. Exactly. Yes. That's a great way to describe it. I'd never thought about that before, but yeah, that's terrific, George. Yeah, I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal that.
I'll tell you, I stole it because way back in the day, Don LaFontaine would offer a ride along, and I mean a literal ride along, because he had a limo.
I heard that stories.
And he would drive and you could, if you were very lucky, and you got a conversation in with his agent, Steve Tischerman, he might have you in Don's limo. He'd pick you up at a certain place, certain time, and you'd ride along with Don. So no one gets to do that anymore, but they do get to do this with you, and they get to learn this way, which is pretty valuable. How do you choose who gets to be coached at those sessions?
It depends. I had to start, of course, with people that I knew. Hence the early names, Natasha Marchevka, Patrick Kirchner, Billy Joe Combs. She's done it twice.
Oh, love Billy.
Things like that, And then from there, then there were people that were just studying with me.
Yes.
And then I would say, okay, so some of these folks are great. at what they do, and they have studied with me. I put them up first.
Yeah.
So then I said, hey, you're not so far along in your journey. How do you feel about it? And then some people were like, yeah, I'd do that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Then I also began to reach out to people from my past where I was just sort of like, hey, Conroy, come on in. Will you do this for me? And he goes, yeah, sure. Stuff like that, So Jim Conroy came in. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he and I worked together for a long time. Super great guy that way.
Yeah. And it's an exchange it's an exchange of energy because I presume they're getting coaching gratis for that session.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're getting free coaching. Students are learning something for free. You're getting to share your knowledge and show people how you work. So you're secretly marketing yourself, or maybe not so secretly.
It's not a secret.
It's not a secret. It's the same reason I did VOBS and EWABs. It's showing everybody that we're experts. We're giving away this information for free, and we're doing it every week because we like to help, and we want to establish ourselves as experts. And that's what you're doing with this. It's a great thing.
And the irony is that it only expands the knowledge that's out there.
Yeah.
But it's impossible to use it as being the only way that you learn.
Yes.
You still have to get in there and get coached. You still have to get in there and take classes. You still have to do all of those things. And that was the concern initially. And it's a smart concern by some people saying, well, if you're giving all this away and you're not charging for it, I don't understand. And my rejoinder to that was, if you go buy a book, does that mean that you can do it? Right. And if you read that book, does that mean you can really do it? And then people were like, wait. And I'm like, think about that.
Right.
And they were like, oh, okay.
Right.
And like some people have said to me, well, you're not sending out newsletters anymore. You're barely doing a mailing list. And I'm just sort of like, yeah, but I announce the open studio and then people come and then they really get to see what's going on. And they're like, wait a minute. And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. Now, my goal is to take the backlog of video that I've got and turn it into micro pieces in order to put that out on the socials and everything.
Absolutely.
But it's going to be an emphasis on the coaching parts.
Right.
Not so much on the hype parts.
Right.
I'm not interested in, I'm not comfortable with hype.
Yeah.
I take a lot of joy in being in the room and doing the work with people.
Yeah.
But the hype around it to say, I'm awesome doing this, I would rather show what I'm doing and then have it land on people the way it lands on them. And if people appreciate it and respect it, then I think that they want a little bit more. And if they look at me and say, well, here's a level to aspire to, then people that aren't showing effectiveness with their work could be looked at just a little bit askance sometimes too, where it's like, but wait, this was effectively done over here. I'm looking at you. I'm not feeling that. Okay, so there's good work out there and it looks like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful because, it's those kinds of opportunities are rare. And it's a win-win-win. The audience wins, they learn. The person being coached gets coaching, real coaching. Yeah. And you're getting to flex your muscle in front of a group of people who are seeing the way you work, and hopefully will then decide you might be the coach for them. It's brilliant all the way around.
And they can make an informed decision, and then that can be very useful to them, more effective for them than probably anything else. Mm-hmm. People can write books. I understand you just wrote a book. Congratulations on that.
I'm muscling through. I'm in 11 chapters. We've got at least 7 more to go, but we're getting there.
Amazing. Good for you, man. I drafted a book during the pandemic, and I never went back to finish it. But writing a book is a bitch. Good for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. From there, then people can reach out to me for the complimentary consultation.
Yeah.
Where we can just talk about the details, go over what might work for you. And then from there too, I'm recognizing that I could be effective, I think, at working with people who are not on the 3 to 5 year level.
Right.
So I'm starting to then offer focused specific kinds of coaching to say, I'm going to do an hour with you privately just on this one topic. So like audition coaching, for example, has become a very, very strong idea for me.
For sure.
The idea of saying, show me the way, how you're auditioning. Okay, this is what I'm hearing in your auditions. Let's work on that. And then really targeting for a full hour, just that. And then people can go on, which is very different than saying, how do I think about a piece of copy?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's a really, really different thing. That takes a bit of time and some effort.
Yeah.
So that's where people need to choose to invest.
Right.
In a lot of different ways. The workshops, the conferences, all of those kinds of things. That's where you and I met. I don't even remember if it was WOVO or VO Atlanta at this point where you and I met, George.
I can't remember. It's too many years. Too many years have transpired.
I know we had that great chat in Chicago. I know that.
Yes.
And I know that I saw you at VO Atlanta.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think we might have been introduced just before that. It might have been at One Voice, I think.
Yeah.
Where you and I think that was where you and I actually met the first time.
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad we got to know each other, and I'm glad that I got to know a lot more about you today, and our audience did. And hopefully they'll tune in because this is an incredibly good resource. And we're absolutely going to make sure they know all about it, and we're going to make sure they know where to find it. It'll be on our Trusted Partners page at georgethe.tech. And for sure, it'll be mentioned to our members, and we'll be passing that around because this is a very valuable resource, and it's totally free. So I hope you guys all check it out. And Hugh, I appreciate you sitting down with me today.
Thank you, George. This is great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Good vibes.
Man.
Good vibes all the way around.
Absolutely.
As always.
Absolutely.
Thanks again, Hugh. And thanks, guys, for listening. I appreciate your time. And tune in. We're going to keep doing more great stuff like this and absolutely take advantage of what Hugh has to offer. I mean, because it is a massively useful tool. Get in there and go make some great voiceover. Thanks again. This is George the Tech for the Performer Friendly Podcast. Signing off. Thanks a lot.
George the Tech.